Alright guys, welcome to your 31st video, and in this video, like I said, we're going to be adding a list selection listener. Basically what this applet is going to do is wait for the user to click one of these options inside the list. They don't care if they click the title or something. They only want to wait and see if they click one of these options inside the list, like this one or this one. Now, in order to do that, what we need to do is add a list selection listener. So go ahead and write the name of your list, which is main list, and I easily could have typed that, and add a method called add list selection listener to it, just like that. Now, inside this parameter, let me see if it will tell you in the documentation. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you it's my kind of what I'm here for, isn't it? What we need to do is we need to add an anonymous inner class, basically the functionality to wait for the list itself. So the first thing you do is add a new list selection listener. And by the way, I don't really like anonymous inner classes. It's like a class inside of a class inside of a class, and there are easier ways to get around this, but for now, would I spell something wrong? List selection listener. Oh, I just think I'm not done coding it yet. So inside here, we add a method called value change. So public void value changed, and inside this parameter, you pass in the event, which is list selection event, and we'll just name this event. Alright, easy enough. So basically what we have going on here is we added a listener to that list. Basically a bit of code that sits on that list and waits for something to happen. Now whenever a user pretty much clicks anything on that list, then it's going to call this method value changed. Now what do we want to happen inside value changed? Well, what we want to do is basically say, okay, whatever option you clicked on, go to that website. Simple enough, but we need to do it in kind of a weird way. So the first thing you need to do is make an object, just name it object, and set it equal to main list, which is the list that we're listening on, and we'll make a method called get value. Man, I wanted it to pop up. Get value selected. Now, or wow, I messed that up. Get selected value. There we go. Now, what this method does is it gets the title of the website. So, for example, what this is going to do is if you click on thenewboston.org, what get selected value does is it is going to grab the string thenewboston.org. So that's what this line of code does, and it's going to store it in this variable called object. So now what we can do is, remember, the point of this program is pretty much to have the browser take us to that URL. So basically what we can use with that information is going to say, okay, this title, thenewboston.org, is associated with a URL. So wherever you see this title associated with the URL, that's where we want to go. So next, what we need to do is we need to make another variable that's going to hold the URL object, and we'll just name this new document. Set this equal to website info, because remember, website info is the hash map that has the information of the title and the URL. So you guys are going to see once I'm done. Get object. So right now, if you guys can't tell what's going on, what we did in this line, like I said, is we grabbed the title of whatever was, I'll just say it's thenewboston.org. So whenever we grab the title, thenewboston.org, what this line of code does is it's going to say, okay, we want to get we want to get the URL where thenewboston.org is associated with. Now the URL of thenewboston.org is http thenewboston, // the full URL that your browser can go to. So now that full URL is stored in a variable called new document. Why do you need to store it in a URL instead of a string? Because in your Java program, it can only go to URLs. You can't go to a string. You can't go to a string called what website do you want to visit. You can't go to a string called tuna fish sandwich. You can only go to a valid URL. So that's why we need to convert it into a URL object. So before we can just say, okay, go to this URL, what we actually need to do is figure out what browser or what the user is using to run this applet. So in order to do that, and once you guys see this bit of code, you guys are going to understand what's going on. Applet context browser equals get context. Alright, now hopefully I don't have any errors. Now what this line of code does is it gets applet context. So for example, if I'm running this applet inside Chrome, which I am right now, then it's going to say, okay, the browser is equal to Chrome. That's essentially what it does. And why do I need to do that? Because whenever I'm going to a URL, you just can't say go to a URL. It needs to say what do you want to use to go to that URL. So I want to use that browser, which is Chrome in my case. Maybe it's different, you know, if you're on Internet Explorer, which hopefully you aren't. Show document, and the new document is this. So let me guys talk you through this one last line, and you can see what's going on. So, well, I might as well talk you guys through what we did. We basically added a listener, so anytime a user made a selection in that list, it said, okay, run the method value changed. So this method gets ran anytime the user selects something. So whenever they selected, you know, the newboston.org, what happens is the first thing it did is get the title, which is the newboston.org. The second thing it did is it got the URL from that title, because remember in our HTML file, each one was associated with another one, or in the hash map rather. Now once it has that URL converted from a string, it could go ahead and find out what browser you're using and use your browser to basically take you to that URL. And in order to, you know, take someone to a URL, you need to use the method show document, which basically says, okay, show the web page itself. So that's what that does. And if you're saying, okay, where the heck did, you know, all of this crap come in? Something is not making sense here. Well, the reason things aren't perfectly tied together right now is because we didn't grab the info from the HTML file. So in the next tutorial, what I'm going to be showing you guys how to do is actually stealing the info from the HTML file that we made in the very first tutorial, and we're going to be populating this hash map and array list. And once you learn that, you guys are going to be good to go. Learn all about, you know, making a browser within a browser. So thank you guys for watching, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.